All right, let's talk about something we've all felt. You're scrolling, you're clicking, and you can't help but wonder, why does so much TV feel so predictable? Well, to figure that out, we're going to look at one of the most unpredictable artists on the planet, Reggie Watts.
I mean, seriously, think about the last show you just couldn't stop watching. Or even the one before that. Was it another hospital drama? Maybe a gritty detective show with a dark past? Or, a reboot of something you loved as a kid? If you feel like you can almost guess what's going to happen next, well, you're not wrong. And trust me, that's not an accident.
TV has this huge potential, right? It could be this amazing space for bold, totally original art. But what do we get instead? So often it's just reboots, spin-offs, and the same old formulas we've seen a million times. And that gap, that space between what television could be and what it so often is, man, it can be pretty frustrating. Okay, so here's the absolute core of the issue. The sameness we're all seeing, it's not some kind of creative failure. It's not that people ran out of ideas. No, it's a feature, not a bug. The entire television industry is basically built from the ground up to be as predictable as humanly possible. And that brings us to our guy, our case study. Meet Reggie Watts. He's a musician, a comedian, a performer, and he is the living, breathing, walking opposite of the entire television formula. If TV is a deck of cards, it's full of kings and queens. Reggie? He's the ultimate wild card.
So what's his deal? Well, at the very heart of everything he does is just pure, unfiltered, in-the-moment improvisation. I mean, the man starts with absolutely nothing and just builds these entire worlds of music and comedy right there on the spot. He literally thrives on the unexpected, which, of course, is the one thing the TV industry is designed to stamp out. His style is just this chaotic, brilliant mix of everything. He's got these looping pedals, right? And he uses them to build these incredibly complex musical tracks live, just layering his voice and beatboxing. And his humor, it's totally surreal. Sometimes it doesn't even make sense. It's kind of like anti-comedy, where the punchline isn't the point. You honestly can't put him in a box, mostly because he builds a brand new one every single time he gets on stage. So the big question is, how on earth does an artist like that survive, let alone thrive, in an industry that wants the exact opposite? To get that, we have to look inside the machine itself. We need to understand why TV absolutely loves a formula, and we've got to talk about the mechanics of something called gatekeeping. And gatekeeping is, well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You've got a handful of powerful people, networks, studios, execs, and they're the ones who decide what gets through the gate and onto your screen. And here's the thing. When there are millions and millions of dollars on the line, they are almost always going to bet on the safe, familiar idea over the risky, new one. You can literally watch this process happen in 4 predictable stages. First, you've got the pitch. An idea might start out original, but to sell it, you have to say it's like this successful show, but with a twist. Then comes the safe pilot, where all the sharp edges get sanded down to appeal to the widest possible audience. After that, you get the network notes, which is basically a process of stripping out anything that's too weird or different. And boom, by the end, the formula is set in stone. And look, it's not just about a few picky executives sitting in a boardroom. This whole thing is driven by huge systemic pressures. Advertisers, they want a predictable audience they can sell to. The studios, they're terrified of losing millions on a flop. And those audience testing groups, they often punish anything that feels too new or unfamiliar. It's basically a perfect storm that creates sameness. Okay, so if the whole system is basically a giant filter designed to catch and remove guys like Reggie Watts, how in the world did he slip through? Well, this is where it gets really clever. He used what you could call the loophole strategy. And here is the absolute genius of his entire career. He never tried to change himself to fit the system. He didn't water down his act. Instead, he found these very specific jobs inside the system that acted like a protective bubble for his art, shielding it from all those pressures we just talked about. And if you look at his career path, you can actually see this strategy playing out. He spent years building his reputation on the indie scene completely on his own terms. He wasn't out there pitching a sitcom. He brought his fully formed, bizarre, and brilliant act to TV only when the perfect, very specific opportunity came along. And the prime example, the one we all know, is his job as a late-night band leader. Think about it. The show itself, it's super structured, very predictable. That keeps the network happy. But the band leader's role, it's to provide these short, improvised, creative explosions. It's a tiny protected space for pure weirdness right in the belly of the beast. All of this brings us back around to the big final question, doesn't it? What does Reggie Watts' totally unlikely career tell us about the future of creativity in the mainstream? Is he a pioneer, a sign of changing times, or is he something else?
And here's the tough pill to swallow. Reggie Watts' success probably isn't proof that the system is changing or becoming more open-minded. Really, it's the story of one brilliant guy who found a tiny crack in a very big wall. He's the exception that proves the rule being that predictability still reigns.
So we have to ask the question that's been hanging over this entire conversation. In an industry that still, day in and day out, values formulas way more than risks, is Reggie Watts the last weirdo on television? Is there even any room for another true original to make it through the gates? Or maybe that's not even the right question to be asking. Maybe the future for the bold, the new, the truly weird, maybe it's not about finding loopholes in the old system at all. Maybe the real question is, where is the new system being built? And if it's not on television, where do we have to go to find it?